Right, so today I want to talk about this quote from Stefan Molyneux. Now, in these times in Canada, it's a very telling quote for many reasons. For many reasons, both current, historical, everything. So I'll read it and then I'll talk a little bit about it. He says, if you're for gun control, then you're not against guns because the guns will be needed to disarm the people. So it's not that you're anti-gun, you'll need the police guns to take away other people's guns. So you're very pro-gun. You just believe that only the government, which is of course so reliable, honest, moral, and virtuous, should be allowed to have guns. There is no such thing as gun control. There's only centralizing gun ownership in the hands of a small political elite and their minions. Now, like I say, it's a very telling point because people who are anti-gun are not anti-gun. They're very much for, if you don't want to pay your taxes because you don't want to you have your tax money going to brainwash kids in school or to bomb kids in the Middle East or to pay the single mom to have kids with unreliable guys or whatever you're morally against. I think pretty much everybody has a laundry list of things that they're pretty mad that their tax dollars go towards, or I think the best one is Justin Trudeau just announced recently that he's giving $850 to the UN. Just perfect time. Canadians are struggling to get by, and you just go ahead and give $850 million of our tax money to a corrupt organization. So yeah, that's just beautiful. But uh, like I say, they're not anti-gun. They're very much pro-gun. And the problem too is that the contradictions just blow my mind too, because you have all these people on the left that are like, oh, the police are racist. They're always gunning down innocent black men and all this kind of stuff. Which again, that's largely overblown. There definitely is some cases. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not disproportionate. At least nothing significantly disproportionate whatsoever. Again, so that they're completely morally and utterly against that kind of stuff. They're they're against tax dollars being used to do a laundry list of things, but yet they're completely for only the police having the ability to own guns. Like I say, how does that make any sense? Now, the big point I wanted to get at here is the government having a monopoly on force. Now, what has happened throughout history? I mean, let's look at Canadian history first. Well, you have all these people on the left that I think rightfully so to a degree. I think that they just do it for the purposes of virtue signaling. They always bring up, oh, the natives were so distreated in the past and all this kind of stuff. Well, I know it wasn't physically possible, but I'm just using it as a hypothetical. Well, what if the natives were, armed with AR-15s? Do you think that the government could have oppressed them the way that you claim they could have? Well, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Um, so again, that's just something. Like I say, I understand it's a hypothetical. AR-15s didn't exist back then, but I'm just using it as an example. You know, like I say, all this. What if the Jews were very well armed? The Nazis would have been in for quite a fight, right? I mean, they probably still would have won, but at the very least, would you rather go down fighting, or would you rather be, I think most people would rather go down fighting, I guess is the best way of putting it. And the other thing too is that just the fact that you are armed is a massive disincentive to do something like that in the first place. I mean, look at why no country even thinks about messing with the states. Why? Because they number one, they're the most well-armed country, and number two, they're the country with the biggest and most powerful military by far. So again, like just look at that. I mean, take for example, too, the United States has over 150 military bases not even on their soil. So even if you nuked every inch of their, of every state, they still would have 150 military bases you'd have to deal with. So good luck with that. But again, this just goes to show that the people are, I mean, a lot of them are advocating for stuff they don't know. Like most people in society make decisions sheerly based, their political opinions are based sheerly off emotion. Now, gun control is one of the best examples of this because in the here and now, they think that, oh, if we take away the guns, it's going to reduce crime, even though it doesn't. The stats don't back that up. I'm going to make a video about that very soon. I mean, not that I haven't made enough videos about it proving that, but I'm going to make another video that's a very comprehensive study on the topic, so stay tuned for that. But um, they think, oh, if we can, it'll reduce crime. But the problem, what they, like I say, they don't, they immediately just see the here and now. And again, it's one of the most telltale signs of an intelligent person is if you can propose any political policy, economic policy, doesn't matter what it is, and even a decision in life, like a life decision, that they don't immediately just say, well, what's going to be the here and effect cause, what are the positives or negatives, and just the here and now. The telltale sign of an intelligent person is that not only do they recognize the here and now, they put as much or more consideration into what's going to happen down the road. Okay, and when it comes to gun control, what happens down the road? Eventually, the guns are all banned, and the government can do whatever they want because, well, guess what? You don't have any way to fight back against any tyrannical thing that they oppress too. And this is the other problem with the left too, is that they're so short-sighted, and their political belief system has no moral and ethical realm to it whatsoever. Like I say, take for example the Joe Biden thing. They have the shtick on the left of, well, you know if we accuse someone of sexual misconduct, it's going to destroy their career regardless of whether or not we have evidence. And then they bring, because they don't have evidence, they bring in this, oh, believe all women idea. And then Joe Biden's accused, and then they all are suddenly quiet, and exposes just how contradictory and lack of a moral and ethical spine whatsoever. It just goes to show that. Now, bringing it to the gun control thing is that eventually, like I say, okay, well, the left is in power now. They're loving this, the power that Justin Trudeau's wielding. But I mean, the problem is that it's probably not going to happen in Canada, which is why the problem is so bad in Canada. But what happens if the conservative, like, what if a Trump figure gets elected in Canada and now he has a monopoly on power? I mean, because according to you guys, he's going to round up all the blacks or all the Muslims and he's going to kill them. Which is again just completely hyperbolic to the nth degree. But according to a lot of these people on the left, they actually believe this kind of stuff. So again, it just goes to show just how short-sighted you are. Like, do you want literal Hitler to have a complete monopoly on force? Like I say, how stupid can you be to support these policies? But you have, um, it's not a majority because I think the Global News poll kind of proved that, but you have a good probably 25, 30, maybe I would say in that 25 to 35% of the population that believes in an outright gun ban, and you have a majority that believes in a semi-auto ban. There's no such thing as an assault rifle. They're already been illegal for most people that are alive right now's lifetimes. Um, so therefore, like I say, the big problem comes back to it's just a lack of ability to comprehend costs and benefits, like a complete lack of ability, and that's kind of the point I wanted to bring home here. Um, and that's the problem too, is that you have these lefties that rail against, ooh, corporations are going to become monopolies and all this kind of stuff. Well, again, if corporations are so hard to control, and again, in the leftist system, corporations are just as bad as in the right. Again, they completely are oblivious to that kind of stuff too. And again, corporations exist based off an act of government. So saying that in a free market the problem is corporations get too big is such a contradictory and illogical statement. I don't even think I can possibly understate that. Um, but again, the problem is that in gun control, the power gets even more centralized in a smaller group of people. And the problem is humans are naturally corruptible. Now, I don't believe that humans are naturally bad. Again, people always twist your words. They think, oh, you're naturally bad or you're naturally good. No, humans respond to incentive. Again, which is why the Nazis convinced so many people to go along with their BS, is that humans respond to incentive. You create enough of an incentive, you can get people to do terrible things. If you create enough of an incentive, you can get people to do very good. And that's the problem with this kind of stuff. So anyway, I wanted to make a video about this because it's a very important quote. And it's very relevant to our current times. And this, again, this is something to bring up too whenever you're in debate with the anti-gunners about this kind of stuff, because again, they're not anti-gun. They're just pro-gun in the hands of a completely as centralized as can possibly be government. And again, the way to get them to recognize the blatant contradiction is to point out all the atrocities that governments have done in the past and be like, hey, would you want the government to have even more power than they did back then? They could have killed even more people. They could have, for all we know, we could be living under Nazi rule right now. um, so anyway, I just wanted to make a video about this because it's very important, like I say. So anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email, got links in the description. I appreciate any donations at the very least. Just hit that like and subscribe. And last things, as always, check out my BitChute channel if you haven't already, and check me out on Twitter if you haven't already.